Welcome to another episode of the Better Learning Podcast. I'm excited about this one. My name's Kevin Stoller. We are going to be talking about the movie Summer School, which was a big part of my childhood. So I am bringing in my brother, Eric Stoller. Eric, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
How many times do you think we've seen this movie?
I would say at least 100 times. Being
Probably
generous.
in that level. And then our other co-host for today, Mark Greenberg. Mark is my first cousin, and I think we all share like the same sense of humor. So I think that's why we like this movie together. But Mark, how's it going?
Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
And what's great is that you guys now both are in the education world too, which I think adds a whole nother level to it. Eric, you want to talk about what you do for somewhat of a living these days?
Yeah, I'm a assistant professor and I'm the Business Solutions Center coordinator at the University of Findlay in Findlay, Ohio.
Mark, let's hear your story.
Yeah, I teach AP physics at the high school level. I've been doing it for about 15 years now. And coincidentally with this movie, it's also in Southern California. I also run our science fair program. It's a great program. We send kids to the International Science Fair every year. And so we keep busy with science out here.
And for the loyal listeners of the Better Learning Podcast, we had an episode where we talked a lot about the Hoop It Up magazine that we did as a project-based learning one back in 6th or 7th grade, maybe 8th grade. And Mark, you were my partner in that. And it's still the thing that I'm most proud of for my entire K through 12 academic career.
You'll be happy to know I have it. It still exists.
Yes, it is amazing. It was so good. Yeah. So Summer School. I just rewatched it in here. I hadn't. When was the last time you guys had seen it before we decide we were going to do this episode?
I would say I tend to see it at least once a summer.
We probably watched it last year. I probably watch it about once a year still to this day.
I can't remember. I feel like I've seen pieces of it. I've definitely have, like when I looked at my YouTube history, I definitely have looked it up scenes to show to my kids. So I feel like I talk about it a lot. I quote it a lot, but I don't know the last time I actually sat down to like watch the entire movie. And yeah, it's 1987, I think was when it came out. Mark Harmon was starting to get known. Like he wasn't like, I don't know, was he in a lot of movies before that?
I really think that the entire cast were generally unknowns, right? Mark Harmon, Kirstie Alley was sort of known,
but only for TV. That's what surprised me. It was the first.
Right.
That was her first like major movie.
Yeah, I think they really took a risk on this cast, and it panned out wonderfully.
Yeah, the premise of the movie. Anyone who has not seen it, one, you need to go see it. But it's a pretty simple premise, right? It's a gym teacher that was recruited in the last minute to be the substitute, basically the summer school teacher of a bunch of kids that had flunked English, and there's a new requirement that they all have to pass English, so they all have to take summer school, and nobody wants to be there, and that's basically the premise of the movie, right? Yep. But and the fact that it's set in Southern California, I don't know. Maybe we start there. It was called Oceanside High School. Mark, you live near that area. Is there an Oceanside High School?
I do not believe so, but I did read that it's the same high school where they filmed The Karate Kid.
Yeah, and growing up in the Midwest, like that type of school was like the coolest idea ever. Like you walk outside. I don't know if there's high schools that literally look at the ocean, because she was checking out the waves, deciding to leave. Like I remember looking out the window and seeing a street or snow. And that is a very big difference for me. That made it was like, that is a cool looking high school that I'd love to go to.
And it seemed like this fictionalized place, right? We all grew up in the Midwest, and it seemed like, okay, this is just for the movies. But now that I live out here, it's clear that all the California schools are outdoors, that you walk outdoors, you go to your next class, and some of them do overlook the ocean. So it's not as fictionalized as I thought as a kid.
What I mean, what? Yeah, I mean, we can definitely get into some of the specifics in there, but what when we get into the awards, but the idea of a teacher, like it seems like the premise of it's pretty realistic, right? Like a guy who loves to surf, he's a gym teacher, comes in. I mean, he even talks about it of saying like I came in like the only reason he taught was for the summers off. Stereotype, or do you think that's pretty realistic?
I think it's, I think there's realistic to it. The school year is pretty long when you're going through, and there's a lot going on, a lot of people to deal with. But I like look forward to my breaks. I think it's nice. I came from working in college athletics where I was working, 200 days pretty much in a row because of baseball and softball season and things like that. And now I'm like, oh man, I get my nights, weekends, holidays, and I teach at the college level. So literally I'm in the classroom for at the most probably 3 hours a day. So for me, yeah, there's definitely some perks to it. But it's probably different at the high school level.
Yeah, we got all kinds at the high school level, and you got people who are truly passionate about education. There are certainly people that do it for the breaks, and that's all they do is count down to summer break to winter break. So I would say that this is probably 90% real.
Yeah. I mean, I lived right by the beach there. I mean, yeah, again, I mean, we're coming from the Midwest. So I think when we were watching this, like as kids, we're like, oh, like there was not an ounce of me that thought like this was unrealistic. Like, like, yeah, that's just what you do. Like that's what happens in California. Is you live by the beach, you go surfing, and you go roller skating around with with your Walkman on.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that is totally the greatest life. I think, as we'll probably get into in some of these later, but there's some stereotypes on different types of areas that people teach in. But for me personally, I think like, yeah, it definitely fits. I think when you're talking about the atmosphere and the roller skating and being out there, I couldn't imagine even concentrating in school, looking out the window and being like, oh, there's some guy out there surfing. I'm I'm watching a guy plow the street. Not quite as exciting.
Yeah. All right. Before we get started, is there on the awards? Is there like if you were gonna say this movie is awesome because like is there like a favorite part or something for you that that stands out to say like this is one of my favorite movies or ones that I want to rewatch every year?
I would say my favorite part is the fact that I could watch any scene of this movie and be entertained by it. Like as I was rewatching it, I was kind of thinking, when's my point that I can get up and run or get something to eat or something real quick? But I was like, every scene, I know what line's coming up, and it's entertaining to me that I need to sit there and watch the whole thing.
There's obviously the whole class clown thing with Chainsaw and Dave, but I almost feel bad admitting this, but out of all the movies that we grew up with that were inspirational with teachers, this one legitimately hit home for me because of how genuine Shoop is. That the way he connected with these students, we think it's just a movie. We think it's like, oh, this is clever. But the reality is, and maybe it's because I'm also in Southern California, I don't think so, is that once you are genuine, the students will connect with you. And to me, that's why I love this movie.
Yeah, it was actually kind of surprising watching it now, like as an adult, like with a different lens to it of just like purely of like, this is like a funny movie that I've seen forever and relate to. But yeah, like as I was like trying to put that lens to it, I'm like, man, like we always talk about it on the education side of like that kid just has to have like one adult in the school that they can connect with. And you can tell like these kids have not had that up until this point. Almost like they don't even know what to do. And now that they got somebody that does genuinely care about them, they respond. Yeah, it was a totally different lens. I didn't expect thinking about that like because I just thought I'm like summer school. Oh, it's just gonna be a dumb comedy. We're just gonna have fun talking about it. I'm like, oh, there's actually some pretty good connections in there.
And I'm glad to hear that you talk about having that one connection. One of the first pieces of advice I got going into teaching was basically, you may be the only adult in their life that is trustworthy, and that's Mr. Shoop, and he did it for an entire class. It was a class of 10 people, by the way, but
Well,
the entire
it
class.
wasn't at the beginning. There were
Clearly
a
they're
lot
not
of
moving
kids
on.
that just disappeared after that first class.
Only one of them went to the bathroom. Where did the rest of them go?
I know there were a lot, and then yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk more about like the horror movie scene in the classroom, but the guy with the hand, like, he pops up. We had never seen this guy before in the movie until that point. So I don't know if that was realistic because I thought about that too. I'm like, man, all these kids, like, none of them want to be there, and they're all, they're all clearly like 16 or 17 or 18 years old. How many are actually going to show up for summer school, or is that just the point where they just drop out of school and be like, screw that, I'm not doing that? And maybe that's actually what happened.
And sort of going off that, like I kind of think about like your class clowns, like the Chainsaw and Dave. And in my head, as I was younger, I was kind of like, those would have been the first two to ditch out of there and not come back again. And then as I got into teaching, I see that more common than not, that maybe the students who are struggling, they tend to come around more. They want to interact more, especially with somebody who they could connect with. And I think as many of them saw, maybe this was that one teacher they connect with, and that's why those 10 kind of succeeded. I mean, I guess it didn't take the other people's zeros into the great inflation at the end there, but it was kind of interesting to see that they were required to go. They came the first day and ditched out in the first, 20 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah, those test scores. What was it? Someone got a 6. That was awesome.
Monster comeback.
The test scores were awesome. That last scene is so good. All right. Yeah. I mean, there's so many one-liners. Let's just start out with our award categories. We started the first one we called the John Keating Award, the top teacher in here. I mean, there's really only 2 teachers in the movie. So it's Shoop and it's Robin. I don't even know what Robin, played by Kirstie Alley. She has a last name, doesn't she? I don't think I.
Bishop.
Oh yeah, Robin Bishop. Who's your pick? Is it
I
Shoop?
think that's an easy one. Robin, you don't even see her class. Oh, you do the one time the kids teach themselves.
Yeah, that's right. She just asked him to.
She has the honors kids. Yeah, this is 100% Shoop. Yeah,
You have the honors kids, though, don't you?
I do, and I got it easy.
Oh man! All right, so Shoop gets that one. The clicks. I mean, the stereotypes. There are a lot of stereotypes in here. I mean, they don't do it by like groups though. It's pretty much like each kid represents like one of the stereotypes in there. We did Breakfast Club like a few weeks ago, and it was similar to that, where it's like they have like one kid representing each group. I mean, they hit them all though, right? I mean, you got the jock, you got the nerdy kid, Ekian.
And my favorite part though is how they interact. And I'm sure you talked about this in the Breakfast Club too. But the way that the jock ends up with the pregnant girl, and the nerd ends up with the one who was struggling with the driving, and all of a sudden there's this interaction where it didn't seem isolated like you see in a lot of movies.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty good representation. I mean, most of that's still relevant today, right? I mean, do you see any, like, if that was remade right now, would there be different cliques, or would there be like a different group that wasn't represented by someone in there? Like, they didn't really have a drama person, did they?
No, I don't think they had a drama or music person. And there's a real, and it might be my school specific, but a lot of video gaming, a lot of anime. There are some different cliques that we didn't grow up with, and I really think, we may talk about this later, that if they were to remake this, we would have to consider some of these new cliques.
Yeah. All right. Should we move on to Class Clown?
You're giving us
This
the
one,
easy
it's
ones.
like a duo,
Yeah,
right?
these two were easy.
And
you gotta go
it's gotta
Chainsaw and
be two
Dave.
of them combined, since they share a brain. Like, Chainsaw and Dave is like, they definitely steal the show. I mean, I felt like every scene they're in, it is just nonstop with them.
Yeah, I think that's gonna come up a lot with the one-liners, because these guys, especially as a little kid watching it, they were the ones who stole the show. Like, those were the lines I used all the time, and I think looking at it, they definitely stole the show from everyone else, but not to the point where everyone else kind of disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's literally from like the beginning of, like, they steal the keys. They're somewhere in this room right now. I mean, how many times have we done that?
Oh wait, forgot where I put them.
You're ice cold. Yeah. And the one that hit me, like, I kind of forgot about it because I hadn't seen it long enough, is the humming scene. Oh my God, that was so good. Like, so good. And I kept thinking, I'm like, if somebody did that right now, like, I mean, you would just crack up, right? Like, there's no way, like, you can get mad at kids if they did that. Like, that takes a lot of coordination.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do in class if that happened. Join.
Yeah, I would be so excited that they coordinated something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're sticking up for each other. They're covering their back. Like, oh, that was so good.
And that's what I like about Chainsaw and Dave is they didn't seem to be exclusionary, right? They picked on the teacher, but it wasn't, they didn't have mean intentions. And that's what made them, I think, the best class clowns.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they really didn't. Yeah. I mean, even with the teacher, I mean, they kind of picked on him a little bit, but they also had his back for the most of the movie too.
Well,
I was kind of surprised how they picked on the vice principal, and like they just seemed to get away with everything.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the interaction. Yeah, I mean, we can get into the vice principal when he comes in during the screening of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, nobody even like acted like at all concerned about him walking in the room while they were showing that. I would say that may be unrealistic.
Yeah, it's like with the unrealistic is the vice principal in general. His mentality of like, these are the class of misfits and you're the misfit teacher, and not even holding back what he says about them. Like at the end, he's like, they're not even going to pass or whatever. And
Yeah,
Mr. Shoop's like, he says, best to ever done.
That was, and yeah, I put some notes in there. He had a quote in there that I'm like, oh, like, I hope that doesn't. Yeah, he's like, well, he's not a real teacher, and these aren't real students. The music, I mean, the music is really, I mean, it's total 80s music, but it's like good 80s music.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with that little test taking montage, that Mind Over Matter song. And I don't know if you guys know this. Well, one, there's a full on music video. But did you guys know, and you may know this, the person that sang that song played Dottie in Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
Oh, that's what I recognized her from. I'm like, I feel like I recognized her, but I didn't know what. That's, man.
And it's such a different character, right? That is all kind of shy in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and all of a sudden she's on stage singing this song, Mind Over Matter.
But she was a singer too, though, wasn't she?
I mean, she definitely sang Mind Over Matter. I know that.
That all right. The intro song, I did do a little research, and you know that like that one that I don't even know how to describe it.
The instrumental.
The instrumental. Did you see who wrote that? Wrote and performed it? Danny Elfman.
Wow. The second greatest songwriter of our generation.
Who are you putting as number one then?
I'll let you go first. Who are the best songwriters? It's Randy Newman, right? Randy Newman has to be number one for me.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, I would say like in the name, Randy Newman, he's had like the most amount that he's done. But when you actually like think of Randy Newman songs, like they're pretty bad. Like I love L.A. Like if you just like think of like look at the lyrics of like of some of his songs, they aren't very good. But I will give you, they are very catchy, and he has made a really good name and reputation.
Well, on behalf of Southern California and all Dodger fans, where they play "I Love LA" all the time, I'm going to defend Randy Newman to the death. Danny Elfman, I'm not just Danny Elfman. Top two. That's a compliment.
Yeah. I felt like this was like a lower Danny Elfman's notch. Like usually he has a little more sophistication in his movies and in his music, and I'm like, it surprised me. But it matched. It was like perfect to start the movie.
Yeah, and they set the scene perfectly too, right? Southern California, beaches, roller skating, the 80s fashion. You know within 30 seconds exactly what this movie is.
All right, yeah, go ahead, Eric.
I love that intro, and I love everything that goes with the end of a school year. Like just coming in, and you got the kids turning the books back in, and the one kid has all the pages ripped out, and the one girl has a book that's never been opened. Like to me, that was like the end of a school year, people throwing all their stuff out, everything going with that. And I think the music just like got you in the mode for summer. And then it was kind of like, these guys got to come back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the scoreboard. Yeah, I agree. I mean, they set up a lot with the music and everything in that first scene. Yeah. I mean, they set up the whole movie in that during that song. I mean, it was
each character.
The teacher, yeah, all the characters. You got the teacher scratching off the lotto. All right, this is my first like nitpick thing there. $50,000 from the lotto. I mean, it kind of acted like he just like totally quit his job, right? Or do you think he just quit the summer school portion of it?
I totally Googled this of what $50,000 is now, equivalent to 1987, and it's almost $140,000. It was probably over a year's salary, maybe 2 years' salary for a teacher at that point.
I agree with Wolfie that doesn't seem like retirement money, but he did seem old, right? So if he was a year or two away from, right? So maybe he was thinking, I'm going to retire in 2 or 3 years, and this kind of put him over the edge. Yeah, but 50,000, 140,000 in today's dollars, I don't think any of us are retiring in that.
Yeah.
And a teacher, that summer school is decent money. And near the end of your retirement, if they're putting it toward like their total pay for the year, like it could be counting towards their retirement pension plan. And he's just like, hey, I'm good now.
Yeah. All right. This was the first thing where it looked like they had an editing error. Do you guys even know do you know already what I'm going to say?
Is it about the pregnancy?
Oh,
is it about the strip club?
Well, I want to hear both of these.
That's my other issue. All right, I'll start. But apparently, when Rhonda taps her belly when she's pregnant, you can hear the basketball or whatever's in there. You can hear it momentarily.
What was a strip club?
What is he doing?
Right?
He's got a 21-year-old girlfriend who's in Hawaii. He's hitting on the other teacher. And he's going to a male strip club and then finds out that it's one of his students there. Like,
Yeah,
to
there was
me,
no
there was
reason.
no story about him. He said he
There was
worked
a
for a
little bit of
magazine.
like he had to find a woman that was more sophisticated, and that's where he decided to get.
Is that the justification? Because he legitimately was in jail the scene before, and he gets bailed out on roller skates, and next thing you know, he's in a flashy suit in a male
Yeah,
strip club
yeah,
on ladies' night.
yeah. All right, I agree with you. Now that I think about it, that was kind of out of place. How
Like,
could
I
they have
felt
done
like
that
there was a
differently?
missing scene. I felt like there was a missing scene somewhere. And I've looked all over the internet to be like to me, you guys know this. I think of the Goonies when in the end they're like, oh, the octopus theme. And you're like, what's this kid talking about? And you could go find the octopus theme. I want to find the reason why he was there. And he said he was writing for Playgirl magazine or something. This guy doesn't even know English. He was passing all the topics around that he didn't want to write him.
Yeah, yeah. That was an odd one.
Kevin, you had one, and we interrupted you.
Yeah,
What was your?
mine was like dumb compared to these now. Like I was at the beginning, like when Wonder Mutt the dog gets introduced for the first time, and Shoop goes to hide behind the bushes, and Wonder Mutt follows him, and then the next scene they cut again, and Wonder Mutt again runs out and tries to find him like around the bushes. So yeah, mine's not as good as yours.
Well, I guess the rest doesn't happen. If the dog goes the first time and he doesn't see it, the movie doesn't happen.
Yeah, but that was an '80s thing, like the guy in Major League who runs down the stairs into the stadium twice.
Yeah,
Lots of continuity errors.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. It's I get it. Like, but baseball scene. There's a lot of people in the stadium. This one was a pretty obvious one. Like, all right, but yeah, but I get it. Dog actors. That's tough. Yeah, man. All right. So we hit that. I feel like since we're still like at the beginning of the movie though. Let's talk about just like Shoop writing his name, like that opening scene on there. That's just like classic. The way he writes Shoop on the chalkboard with the two O's and makes a smiley face from that.
Well, I love that scene. And as we had our own company called Shoop Media, named after Shoop, and we had the smiley face coming off the O's. I think it's just kind of a way of showing he's not that established teacher. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing with the chalkboard. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this, so I'm gonna write my name on it.
So much of what he does reminds me of teachers who had that good heart, but they're also new, right? And they make all sorts of first time mistakes, right? He wants to be liked immediately, and as we go through the movie and he starts doing the bribes in order to get them to study, that's something that new teachers sometimes do. Like, hey, if you guys do this, I'll give you, and they start making deals with students. And I saw so many new real life new teacher kind of things that you want to fix over time. But you could tell that if he actually did this for a long time, he would be such a good teacher, right? Because he's going in with heart. He's a genuine dude, and he would probably, not do the bribes. But that's what makes this movie, is the fact that he's new and making all those new teacher mistakes.
I mean, me not coming with teacher training, I probably would do the same thing. Like at first, you're like, you want to be friends with them, you want to get them to like you. Yeah, I think you're right. That's to me where I think of like, like that teacher burnout of like, they go in there and they do that and they're like, oh crap, like, what do I do now? Like if that was, if that would be my progression, I'd be like, crap, I can't do that every year.
And I think that's the challenge, is sustaining that over years. Like the new teacher, you have a different background. He was a gym teacher moving in there. Like as I moved from one profession to into teaching, I interacted with students all the time. And trying to get them to work with you is great. I feel sometimes they start to take advantage of that. And then as a teacher, you kind of roll back that kind of friendship connection with your students.
But just kind of like what he did by the end too, in some ways.
Yeah. So something that you learn early on as a teacher is you want to be genuine. You want to be a human. You don't want to be mean. But what you learn, or at least I learned early in my career, is all of a sudden you want to give something like, oh, no more assigned seats, go sit by your friends. And as soon as you open that up, there's no taking it back. And I think Shoop ended up in that situation where he opened it up, and like the fact that he was able to rein it back was something short of a miracle. But you're absolutely right about the whole burnout that people who don't teach are like, I could do that, right? That we've all been in a classroom, we know what that's like. And I always say, okay, but then do it again tomorrow, brand new lesson, and then
Yeah.
do it again tomorrow, and continue to do that every single day with a brand new lesson, your best intentions, something that's engaging. And it is not easy to have that Shoop demeanor.
Yeah. Yep. I
And
mean,
if you think about like the topics, like he's teaching English. Like to me, I was not an English. I definitely do not teach English. I teach sport management classes. Like I can find things to bring in. But I had to teach a business communications class once, and getting everyone on the same page is really difficult. In my sport classes, it's easy. It's like, all right, look at the NBA, see what they're doing. They could all relate to that. But some of those other things, I mean, physics, you can probably say like, hey, look at this, look at how the car does this. I don't know anything about physics either, but being able to relate that way, I think some of those classes are really difficult. And I think Mr. Shoop did a good job with that. English, he's like, hey, who had the broken sunglasses? Have you had a product that was bad? If you write a letter and you do it perfectly, people will respond to that. And I think one of the things, this movie was one of the first times I've ever heard of something like that. Like, I don't really remember being like, oh, this is broken, I need to send it back, or I need to complain to get something for free. I think that's normal now, and I don't know if the movie started it or if that was happening beforehand.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely bringing like real, like, how do you bring real life things into what you're learning in the classroom? But I mean, as far as like teacher training though, like, it, do they go through and try to, is that part of teacher training, or is this pretty much like it's on the job training? Like you learn, like you just learn over time, like those type of interactions, and know like where you can go before before you lose control, or you before it starts going the wrong direction.
Yeah. So nothing will teach you like experience. So I want to speak positively of my teacher training, my credential program, my master's. We did have classes on classroom management, and we would get pointers. But the reality is you have to be in that situation. And I went through student teaching, which was definitely really good practice. But when I look back at my student teaching and my first year or two of teaching, there are cringe moments where I made mistakes. And when I see Shoot, I see those same mistakes. But the fact that he went in with heart means you're going to get through and be a long time educator, that it's okay to make those mistakes.
And here at the University of Findlay, we have a program called Teaching Partners. So every teacher who's in their first year teaching at the university has to go through this full year program. And you meet, I think it's once a month. For me, having no teaching classes or anything, getting into this, like, it was huge. It was like, how do you learn people's names? How do you try to figure out how to connect with them and do those types of things? And now that I'm in my 10th year here, I've been a mentor in it probably 5 or 6 times. And I feel like every time I'm still getting something new out of it, because I didn't have education background of going through school. And now being able to do that. And we don't teach anything about like any discipline. All the disciplines are put together in one room. And it's more like, hey, what are your policies? Why do you do these things? You try to be the cool teacher and be like, oh, well, you could turn your homework in whenever. And then it makes for like my last week of the year was so bad, I was grading everybody's assignments for the whole semester. Like, you learn real quick. And as long as Mark was saying, you stick by what you do, people will follow your rules. Like I have a 24-hour rule. You turn in 24 hours late, it's a 0. Like I don't make exceptions for anybody anymore. Obviously, there's special things if they communicate with me. But if you're just going to turn it in 2 weeks late, I'll grade it, but you're still going to get a 0.
Have you ever wondered how a simple change in your classroom can revolutionize learning? At K-12, we believe the physical space is key. When we partnered with Gary Community Schools in Indiana, something incredible happened. Their classrooms were outdated and uninspiring. Using our radically student-centered approach, we reimagined their spaces. The transformation was nothing short of amazing. Teachers saw immediate results, students came back from winter break excited, more engaged, collaboration increased, and overall performance improved. One student even shared, "We have new furniture, it's like Christmas all over again." On the first day back, local media came in to cover the story, capturing the joy and excitement of students discovering their new learning environments. See how we can transform your school today. Visit kay-twelve.com to learn more about our innovative approach. K-12, because every student deserves an inspiring place to learn. Visit kay-twelve.com today.
Next category. One, we need a better name for this category, but like the homecoming scene, is there like an iconic moment that happens in here? There's others that could be like, a pep rally or a game or something like that. Classroom moment. Is there one that stands out for you guys?
I had 2.
I have 2 as well, so I want to hear if they're the same one.
So my first one was when Mr. Shoop got fired or left and getting the students to go get him to come back. Like to me, the roles reversed and they wanted him. He was there. He was really just trying to protect his job and keep his job and, have the easy life he had. And then he gets fired and the students are like, no, we want him. We got to go get Mr. Shoop back. And then the other one I had was when the broken glass, it all kind of clicked with them. And they're all kind of like, oh, we could actually use what we're learning somewhere else. And those are the 2 scenes that I had.
Mark, anything for you?
I want to hear yours.
Mine or like the 2 big scenes where the test taking scene, like that montage, like has there ever been like a montage like on like people taking a test before? Like it was like a Rocky training one of like kids filling out a Scantron.
Right. It's the Karate Kid going through the tournament, but yeah, they're sitting there with pencils and erasers.
Yeah. Yeah. Iki and like biting off the eraser, like it was so intense, and like I had that, and then I did have like just the last scene like that as just like when they're in the principal's office and the parents come in and give their speeches about how good of a teacher Shoop is. What do you have, Mark?
But the first thing that came to mind what was that test taking scene, because I'm a sucker for 80s montages. But at the same time, it was the most bizarre montage that absolutely worked. But I like what Eric brought up, that having the kids come to Shoop is that moment. And I think it harkens back to, I was saying you could be too nice to your classes. They have to respect you before they like you. And that was the moment where it was clear that they respected him. And it changed the dynamic between the students and Shoop.
Yeah. The other one that I thought about throwing in there, like as far as just like the classic scene, it was the horror scene.
Yes.
Yeah, when they brought in, the substitute teacher. I mean, that I think as a kid, that probably would have been my answer. Like that's the scene that I just remember probably more than anything else in the movie.
So on my, I don't want to say it was a deep dive, but on my shallow dive in this movie, apparently they filmed that on Halloween, and they wanted to do that so that they could have makeup and their costumes already ready for the Halloween party that night.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, to me, like just the hand, the creeping hand, and when he takes the eyeball and takes a bite out of the eyeball, like, yeah,
I'm liking the girl hanging on the back with the just hanging behind him.
yeah, or the ruler in the pregnant girl's mouth. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
She goes, please.
All right, we're moving to the one-liner then. There are a lot of one-liners in here. Is there one that we could say was the winner?
I think you guys both will have this one on your list. But you passed and I failed. How could you do that to me?
Don't worry, I can take. I'll take it again. I know I can fail. Yeah,
Real
that
subtly,
was a good one.
I like zipper got stuck. But the guy
Zipper
comes
gets
back
stuck,
after
that's a good
6
one.
weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, the other ones that I had, I mean, at the beginning of it when he screams, he's like tension breaker had to be done. That was pretty good. I had the I don't know anything from his dream. I don't know anything. What are eggs? I don't know. The one that cracked me up to watching it again was well, there were two that I actually had to like pull in, like Darcy. I'm like, Darcy, I'm like, watch this one. One was just that I've always thought was funny is when he's giving the driving classes and they get in the back seat, like, could I call my folks and tell them I won't be home ever? Like that one. But I wish I would have. I can't. The one where she goes to take the test, then, and Dave says something, and I feel like I need to rewatch that part. Dave says something to the instructor.
Oh, you're in for a real treat.
That one
You're
cracked
gonna
me
earn
up
your
this
money.
time.
Yeah, I had a couple more when Mr. Shoop was going with the girl to Lamont's class, and he's like, Lamont's class, great place to meet girls.
Yeah.
And then my all-time favorite, and it's when the judge says, he says, like, did you show ID? You were a black Marine in 1968? A war puts a man through many changes.
There was another one too of like when the mom of the pregnant one says, "Isn't childbirth grounds for a retake?"
This always has been. Like, this is a thing.
The time. Yeah, that was like one of his only lines too. The principal doesn't say much, but that was awesome. It always has been. All right, do we have a winner? Is there one that if you got to pick one line?
Well, I got one more. Mr.
Oh,
Gills,
yes.
I cannot study. I'm going to the library. Sit down. I mean, I think they're all pretty solid.
Yeah. You know,
I'll just add when they were in the car with Denise driving, and at the end they're like, "We live." I quote that one all the time.
yeah, that's.
Do you
Yeah.
like veal? My dad's a
Oh,
butcher.
veal.
And I think they're all pretty solid, but I'm still a big fan of the Black Marine in 1968.
All right. We'll go with that.
That wins.
All right, that's our winner. All right, next category. We talked a little bit the realistic or ridiculous, but is there anything else that we didn't hit that just it was totally ridiculous and unrealistic in there?
What was with the testing ring? They had like permanent desks, but they had a stage.
Yeah,
You being in furniture should have been all over this one here.
There's like lecture halls like that, right? Where it's like also, I don't know. Now that you say that, I don't know if I've actually seen one in person.
It was like
No,
angled seating.
Yeah.
And then they were trying to push through the pregnancy going through the not aisles.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
I'm thinking like maybe a faculty meeting room. I don't even know what you use that room for.
Yeah, with the stage. I mean, I just think back to like Aptekissic junior high days where like for a while, like when instead of getting detentions, you would get staged, where you had to just go on the stage.
I totally forgot.
Yeah, that is kind of odd. I, I I mean the amount of drinking that Chainsaw and Dave did and was just like accepted by the teachers, or at least with Shoop, like that was kind of unrealistic there. Like, is he really going to take the fall for?
And is he going to throw a party at his place with alcohol and fireworks? And right, and at some point he's got to be like, hey, no,
Yeah, yeah, or let the girl stay at his house. Like, all right,
right.
yes, yeah.
I don't know how the 80s were, but that probably wouldn't fly now.
Yeah, and how like when Robin comes over and yeah, he acts like it's no big deal. Like, oh, what? She just need a place to stay.
Yeah, that would not fly. Something really subtle I noticed at the beginning, and maybe it's just a generational thing, is when they were counting down in the gym to summer, Sheep is there. I would never have my students' attention 1 minute to summer break. They would be talking to each other. They would be at the door, right? That somehow they're just sitting there attentive, listening to his last words of advice. That would never happen.
Would there
it's
be?
so
I mean,
meaningful.
I would hope there's gym teachers out there that put the countdown on the scoreboard to summer break. I don't know if that's realistic or not, but I really hope it is.
I think the tradition starts now.
Mark's going to start it in his class.
That's right. You're gonna bring in the scoreboard or take them to the gym.
Right, or do some nerdy countdown. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. All right. How about the field trip permission slips? I got some here. He uses a backpack full of permission slips.
He would never be that organized to actually have all those permission slips, but that was hilarious.
Yeah, that was. Yep. Yep.
So who does Mr. Shoop turn those into? Is he just collecting them? Like, all right, they're good. Let's go. Do they just meet at like the go-karting place or the amusement park? Or do they take a bus?
I did have a deep dive. All right, the amusement park. Did you guys see? Did you look up and see where that was filmed?
Was it Knott's?
Knott's Berry Farms.
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Eric? Were you even
No.
alive when we went there when we were kids?
No, I never even heard of it.
Yes, we went there on vacation. I don't know when. You got to be really young if you guys were, if you and Danny were. I'm gonna have to
Yeah, I
ask
don't-
Mom and Dad that one.
I don't remember.
Yeah, and it's not open anymore, right, Mark? I mean,
No,
it doesn't.
Knott's is certainly open.
It
And my
is?
favorite part is there's a hot dog place you may have heard of right by it called Portillo's. It's the only Portillo's in Southern California. So if you want to make a full
Is
vacation
it
out of it,
like
you get
affiliated? Like it's a Chicago, like affiliated with the Chicago Portillo's?
yeah, it is one of the Chicago Portillo's. They opened one in Southern California, not too far from Knott's Berry Farm.
When did that happen?
It's been a while because one of my first jobs was in that area, and I remember stopping
Oh,
15
man.
years ago.
I didn't know
for a
that.
hot dog.
I thought Arizona was the only place like outside of Chicago area, Chicagoland area, because they have like three. And they have a decent amount of them here, probably like 4 or 5 of them now. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
they know their audience.
Yeah,
that's-
we don't hand those around here in Ohio. Thanks for rubbing it in.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. All right. We hit a lot of ridiculous or not realistic stuff in there. Anything else we missed there? All right. This next one, then I think we'll have a lot. The next gen, the hypothetical update to this movie of would certain elements change if it was made today? Every episode of this that we've been doing in this movie format, the phones element like just is so hard to ignore. Like if those kids had phones right now, like What would it be like if we remade this movie? What would be different?
First off, none of them would be in this class. They would have all used ChatGPT or some AI to write their papers to get them out of it.
True. The first scene in that class would be every single kid heads down on a phone doing their own thing, antisocial. That would absolutely be the first thing. There would be secret plans being made via text, right? So instead of the humming, it would be organized via some group text. And there would definitely be a technology aspect. Gaming is super big. I have students that play Fortnite and CS:GO and whatever into the wee hours of the morning and coming. So Larry would be sleeping because he'd be video gaming.
And he's making a ton of money
That's
Yeah,
right.
through Twitch or something.
He's a Twitch streamer, esports.
Very true. Yeah. All right, now you're hitting some of them like this is an English class. Why were they taking the final on a Scantron?
They still to this day do standardized tests that way.
But for
Right?
like English, like for a writing class, like what would you do as like would they do a multiple choice type of test for that?
I think when you're doing state testing, the only way to grade everyone in a state is that way, right? In a state like California, when you think of the 40 million or however many people live here, and you don't have enough person power to grade all those essays. But I agree, if it weren't a state test, it would make perfect sense to do an essay.
All right. So do you think? All right. Okay. All right. I got sidetracked then. So all right, back to the next gen then. Like anything else that you think would be totally different? I mean, I know there's a decent amount of like 16-year-olds that don't have the desire to get their driver's license right away. I think that's like a weird phenomenon going right now, and they
True.
clearly all wanted to get their driver's license.
I think it's a sense of freedom. When we were growing up, if you got your license, you could go drive and go places. Now you've got Uber, you've got all different types of ways you can get around. Could be a reason. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, do you see it, Mark? Do you see your kids start driving right when they turn 16?
I see what you're seeing, and I thought it was maybe a local phenomenon in my community, but yeah, I have students that will graduate high school, be 18 years old, and say, well, maybe this summer I'll get my license before I go off to college. And I remember wanting to get my license on my 16th birthday, and I had to plan certain things in advance to make sure that I got my license immediately and have that freedom.
Yeah, me too. Even though I failed it the first time.
And you
Which,
still hit that curve.
I still like literally last week I did the same. I still clip curbs when I turn right.
Hopefully there's nobody standing next.
Oh, yeah. Oh. I don't know why. Definitely did not learn. All right. Substitute, if you're going to recast any of the main roles, I mean, to your point, like they picked people that were not like in their prime, and they caught them early. Would it make sense? Like anyone else that you think like in that era that would have made sense to play Shoop or anyone else?
Love the fact that they were all unknowns, right? Or unknown. That the only people I recognize to this day were Mark Harmon, Kirstie Alley, Courtney Thorne-Smith, and you're right, a couple other people were, did a few other things, but there's something special about this movie because you don't view them, right? That when you see Tom Hanks, you see him as whoever, Forrest Gump or the character in Philadelphia, or you see Tom Hanks. And in this, when I see those people, they are my friends from summer school.
Yeah.
And even the others like Chainsaw, I'm like, oh, it's Chainsaw.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, they were in, he was in ski school.
What was that? The Charlie Sheen, Emilio Estevez. Men at Work.
The dirty work. Yeah.
Men at Work. Yeah.
Men at Work. That's right. Yeah. All right. This is who I thought to recast. Like, this was a total like Steve Guttenberg role, right? Like in that era.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was totally up his alley of like kind of like the normal like clean cut type of guy that was a goofball.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the goofball, although he's a little bit more of a troublemaker. So I do wonder
Yeah.
what would happen. I'm not saying it would work, but I think he would maybe join in some of the shenanigans.
Yeah, maybe. And then I don't know. I mean, Kirstie Alley. I mean, she played that role pretty good, but I mean, they probably could have put other people in that role too.
And a few years later, she wouldn't have been that person. Because I think when she started that, she started Cheers around the same time. Like,
Yeah, she was in.
I don't
Look
think they would
Beauty.
have got, I don't know how many of these people they would have been able to get 2 to 3 years later,
Yeah,
or if these actually just made their career for 2 to 3 years later.
yeah, yeah. But I think the students, like they got. There's not like all of them. I'm like they were all really good in those roles.
I even have a hard time thinking of like current people that, like, if you were to recast it, like in the same type of time, like who currently could have played those, and I at the hardest thinking of who could pull it off.
Yeah, I don't think it would have worked with the Corey Feldmans and Corey Haim and the people that were child actors then. It just wouldn't have been the same.
Yeah, you know, yeah. I mean, you can't put Sean Astin in there. He would, yeah, he would try to steal the show. I'm gonna. Well, there's 2 other categories, and I want to hear if you guys have other ones. But the Hags, the Have a Great Summer. This is one. Hags. Do you guys like? Does that even hit your radar? I'd never even like heard of this until like I started flipping through Grant and Maggie's yearbook, and it's like literally everywhere. It's like Hags. So the Have a Great Summer. But is there like anything that you would say like the lasting impact of the movie, like things that 20 years from now? I mean, here we are sitting here like 30 some years talking about a lot of them. But is there like anything that to you is like that lasting impact?
It encapsulates an era, right? It encapsulates the 80s on the beach, Hawaiian shirt, flip flops. And by the way, there are teachers where I work that legitimately wear that every single day. But it's an 80s movie. And the fact that it was 1987, a lot of the inspirational teacher movies happened a couple of years later. And so I don't want to give full credit to Summer School, but I do think that you don't get something like Dangerous Minds. You don't necessarily get Dead Poet Society. Was that after 87? I
Yeah,
don't know.
that was and then even like Freedom Writers, that was later too. Yeah, that happened. Yeah, I mean, you really think about it, in LA in like 93, I think is when that took place.
Yeah, to me, Summer School is the beginning of some of these inspirational teacher movies.
Yeah.
And it did it in a way that was unique and goofy and funny. And the movie sits with me to this day as one of my favorites because I just love Shoop the character.
Yeah, I think it definitely just set the tone for a lot of those high school movies. Like I watched Dazed and Confused, and literally the beginning scenes are almost exactly the same. Like they're getting ready for the summer, they're moving on to the next phase, and like the kids are waiting at the door ready to get out. But I think it left an impression that school could be fun. I think there's always this mentality of like, oh, so dry and so boring, there's nothing. And I think this movie really showed like if you could connect with them, connect with students who maybe aren't sort of motivated by good grades and getting into college and going to that next level, working on some of the students who just needed to get that little attention to get them to where they want to go and to see them improved. And I think that's something that this movie really brought out that I think I can't think of too many movies prior to that did that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just classic 80s. Like it was like, to your point, Mark, like it does like that next wave of like school movies that happen like more in the night, like does feel like much heavier and serious. And it's just like, this was just like total 80s, like light, carefree, like, yeah, perfect.
And the things don't exist. I mean, they worked at a film
Film developing.
film developing place. Like nobody takes pictures and gets them developed. Like it's all on your phone now. And I think a lot of those things are like they don't exist, but to some of us who are older and have seen them, like you're just like, oh, I remember places like that.
Yeah. All right, this last category, I think we're gonna have fun with this one. Is where are they now? Where are these characters now? If you think 87, what are we, 20? How many years is that now? Like 37 years? Is that right? 37 years later. So if these kids, or if like Mark Harmon was like playing like a 35-year-old teacher, is that what he was? They actually reference it.
We actually have evidence for this, right? When Pam was trying to convince him,
Right.
and it's like, when Kim's 66, I'll be 61, and then he goes, yeah, and I'll be 75, and it won't matter. That they're close to those ages, not quite, but but they're approaching those ages that they were joking about.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think Shoop's doing?
He's hanging out on the beach eating ice cream. He's got a new dog just sitting there. He's been retired for about 20 years.
He took his early retirement at 52.
He's living the life.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And yes, he's a bachelor the entire time.
Dating a 25-year-old.
All right. How about the other characters? What do you think? I mean, Kirstie Alley, she just retired teacher, grandma.
Was she actually a teacher?
Yeah, she was, wasn't she? She had to have been a teacher.
Yeah.
How did they not know each other?
Yeah.
All right. Excellent point.
I felt like she was brought in because she was dating the vice principal.
Oh,
to
or
fill
do you
in
think
with
she
the
was
honors
a newer
class.
teacher, like just transferred into the school, and Vice Principal Gills was like the first one to ask her out?
That was his move to get her. Like, hey, I can get you a job.
That is fascinating.
Some of those issues with the movie, like, how did he not know any of the
I
students?
don't know, but is there that much interaction, gym teacher with like an AP teacher?
Well, even the students, he didn't know Chainsaw and Dave. Like, to me, those students would kind of stick out. They knew who he was, but he didn't know even the football players.
It definitely depends on the size of the high school, right? That our high school was upwards of 4,000 kids, and I didn't know a whole bunch of people. Yeah, but if it was a small high school. But Miss Vision, you're absolutely right. Where does she come from? She's clearly experienced, right? She clearly knows what she's doing. Was she brought in just to teach summer school?
Yeah.
I think she's her job is just summer teacher, and she takes the rest of the year off, and she just goes around as a summer school teacher.
She's one of these newfangled educational consultants that gets brought in just for AP summer school.
Yeah, to teach the gym teachers how to teach English.
How to decorate their room.
How to only use gestures.
All right, Chainsaw and Dave, where are they?
They're hosting a podcast and horror movies and roller coasters.
I think I think they definitely would ride the YouTube wave. They're big time YouTubers.
They would have
I
a
can see
huge
them
phone.
specializing in special effects, right? That all they want to do is talk special effects.
Yes.
And that's their YouTube lane for sure.
Yeah. Anyone else you want to? What's Ikian up to?
Trying to live up to his siblings.
I think he's like running like the family's like charitable foundation.
Eek Inc. Right? The charitable foundation.
In memory of grandma.
All right. Anyone else?
What about Pam?
Man, she like a surfing instructor.
I think because she was such a deep feeler, she ends up helping others as she gets older to go through the tough times that she went through, just because she was such a deep feeler.
I'd say she becomes a teacher.
And
and she could connect with those students who didn't make almost his route that he did.
yeah, I don't know. I think she was pretty aggressive, like hitting on the teacher. Like there was, I don't know if she's got like a husband that's like 20 years older than her. I don't know what she
Jim
would do.
Belushi.
I feel like she and Shoop reconnect later in their lives, but it's more just like, let's grab a coffee. And it's just one of those moments, right? They never connect romantically, you know, as they're older. But yeah, but they're friends, they're acquaintances.
What's Vice Principal Gill's doing?
Probably posting angry things on Twitter about everything he doesn't like about this world.
He's got a late night. No, he's got a news show.
All right. All right. I wish I didn't have this other meeting here. But I feel like I should just let you guys wrap it up here. Why don't you wrap it up? I mean, any other things on summer school that you guys want to, what's your closing statement on summer school?
Hang on, I'm looking at my notes. Eric, you can go.
I'd say overall, it was just a movie that I loved as a kid and kind of one that I see now as in the teaching profession, and seeing how much impact you could really have on connecting with a student and being able to do that, and seeing how it's kind of both ways. I said that scene about the students coming to Mr. Shoop's aid. I remember my first year of teaching, I had somebody come in and they were evaluating me, and it was an 8 a.m. marketing class on a Monday. And this guy came in, and usually this class is dead quiet. Nobody asks a question. Nobody says anything. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh, I got a question. What did you mean by this? And how did you do that? And I'm like, who wants to come write this on the board? And like, 8 hands go up. I'm like, and the guy walks out halfway through class, and I'm just like, what's going on? And they're like, we just want to make you look good. It's like, wow, like students actually get that, because a lot of times they don't have that in class, and they want to make sure the teachers that they enjoy having at least get that level of acceptance, because at the college level, you do yearly evaluations and we get to hear the students' feedback. And to be honest, it has a big impact on me, what the students say and what they like about what you're doing. And the fact that my job, they feel like they're getting prepared for the real world. I think that's something that means a lot, and that the things that they're learning in class, they can use. And I think finding that connection is the challenge in a lot of classes.
I agree with so much of what you said. I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but out of all these education movies that we grew up on, and I legitimately think that we grew up in the best era where teachers were glorified. That this one, since then, has impacted me the most. I'm lucky. I work at a school where when I interviewed and got the job, one of the guys, veteran principal, his advice to me was, have fun and be yourself. And I thought to myself, well, that's terrible advice. So, no one's ever told me to be myself and have it work out. But it took me a year or two to realize that in the community where I teach, that goes farther than anything. That when you're genuine, the students pick up on that. And I joke around that I never had any intention of moving to Southern California. I just kind of ended up here. And now I'm living the Shoop life, sort of, right? In Southern California, teaching high school, wearing casual stuff to class, and being my genuine self in a way that is successful with the students. So the reason I am thrilled to have been invited to this podcast is Summer School legitimately is the most influential movie about education in my childhood.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, you're right. You hit it in that it was a very stereotypical movie about schools that just felt right in that era. Like this is what school is about. It's fun. It's goofy. It's like it's not taken like super serious in a lot of ways. And then even like when I look at like the work that I do now, like very stereotypical of like it's about a teacher kind of putting on a performance and the straight rows and everyone like looking at that. And now when I look back and I realize like, and there were a lot of good things, that were taken in there, and a lot of those stereotypes that I feel like in some ways we're still trying to break in there of like that it is all about like just an education system where there's like it's fighting against like that individual teacher and the creativity that comes from like breaking away from having those like student connections, and more of like the administrators of just like wanting you to follow it by the book. um and I feel like it just hit that like stereotype like perfectly of like what kids are about, what kids care about. And yeah, to me, it's just like it just captured that moment like perfect time, like in such like a funny way that yeah, like I don't know, I don't think this type of movie could be made today with the type of impact that that it had.
It's one of a kind. Yeah, it's perfect the way it is.
And I think Mark had a great point. Like growing up, I looked at all the different teachers in the movies and I'm like, I'm not that guy that jumps up on a desk and like gets everybody going. Like that's not me. But I felt like Mr. Shoop's like a cool guy who just wants to have fun and make sure you guys get what you want out of it. Made it seem real for people who maybe aren't that way. I mean, I'm a natural introvert. When I teach multiple classes in the day, like I come home and I don't want to talk. Like it's like decompress mode. So it is putting on a performance, but you got to be genuine. I mean, every kid in my class knows if they want to start a debate and be off track for a good 20 minutes, they'll tell me LeBron James is the best player of all time. And it gets around. Like literally the first day of class, somebody will be like, who's your favorite basketball player? Yeah, and I'll go with it. But it builds that connection. And Mr. Shoop was able to do that. Some of the other ones, they weren't my personality. Like that's not my kind of thing. Like I want to have fun. I want to laugh a little bit. We could do it all. And I think that was kind of like, he's kind of the model that I would want to be as a teacher for the most part. The drinking and all that stuff, probably not the best move. But, and college is different than high school. So there are some differences in there. But for me, that's the type of teacher I wanted to be in the classroom. I can't.
Yeah. So the other piece that I think is really interesting too is we talk about like for our company, we talk this term radically student centered, and the idea of like connecting with students and really making sure that it's tailored, like the education is tailored for each student individually instead of just treating everyone like as masses. He did a great job of doing that, like just being able to connect and finding, like, I know it was goofy of talking about like the wishes of of each of them, but to the point of like connecting with them at that level. And then the ending scene of just talking about like the improvement. It's not about like failure is okay, but it is about like the improvement and looking at like at that individual and saying like, yeah, like you can just look at that and be like, yeah, 63% you failed. Or you can look at each individual and be like, oh, every one of those kids improved, and that's what's more important.
I think it's funny because that's how they evaluate teachers. Like success rate is, oh, if they have this many students who pass and successful, like they don't measure where they were before the class till the end of the class to say like that's a successful year. It's how many people in your school are above this threshold.
Yeah, and Kevin, you bring up a good point about connecting with students. That if there's anyone listening to this that wants to know the smallest secrets that I can have, it's you can say something that takes 5 or 10 seconds that is individualized to one student, and it will make their week, right? Just recognizing that they're on the soccer team and you saw that they scored a goal yesterday, recognizing anything, and it takes 5 seconds out of your life it will completely change the way your classroom dynamic works.
All right, perfect. As we wrap up here, anything that you guys, I know you both are working on like really unique, cool initiatives. That's why I always like talking to both of you guys, because you are not approaching your jobs like, like where if you're just going to do the same and kind of status quo approach. Why don't you guys, Mark, you want to start first, or just talk about like what are things you're proud of or things that you're working on right now?
Yeah. So as I said in the introduction, I teach AP physics, and I also run a science research program at my high school. And this science research program is an opportunity for students, any student, to work on a science project of their own choosing for the entire year. I love this program because, one, you get to do what you want to do. You can think of any question and go with it for the entire year. You work on not only your skills of doing science, but you have to write a full research paper in APA formats. You need to create an entire poster and present to professional judges at our district science fair. And basically, in the state of California, our students can advance to the LA County Science Fair, they can advance to the California State Fair, and ultimately some of them advance to the International Science and Engineering Fair called ISIF. And my plea is that the California State Science Fair has been online for 4 or 5 years now due to lack of funding. And so one of my goals is to potentially work with the California legislators to see if we can get a little bit of our state funding to bring the California State Science Fair back to in person, because these kids need to be communicating in person with these judges, because that is just such an important life skill. It's one thing to do good science, it's a completely different thing to communicate it well. And if these kids have both those skills, I feel like I have done my job.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. Eric, how about you?
So as I said at the beginning, I teach at the University of Findlay, primarily teach sport management classes, and I oversee what we call our Business Solution Center, which is all of our internships, experiential learning, really getting students hands-on experience. And this past year, I've joined a group that's starting a summer collegiate baseball team here in Findlay, Ohio, called the Flag City Sluggers. And it is college players. They get the opportunity to come play in the summer. And what we're going to do is we're going to staff it with all, it doesn't have to be college students, it could be high school students too, but it's going to be run by all students. So it's going to be a really fun aspect. They get to do all the ticket sales, sponsorships, promotions during the games. And with that, at the university, I'm going to be teaching a class called The Business of Baseball. And it's all going to be based on the Flag City Sluggers. So they're going to be putting together marketing plans. And those students will have the opportunity then to do internships in the summer. Or anyone who wants to be an intern, feel free to check out our website, flagcitysluggers.com. And it's just going to be all student run. So it's something to do here in the summer. We'll play 42 games and the league called the Great Lakes Summer Collegiate League. So it's pretty fun. They're going to be able to see the real stuff, like how much money we have to bring in to actually run the team, travel, house, do all those types of fun activities. So students will get firsthand experience doing these things, as well as get some credit for their universities as well.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining. To the listeners, if you like this type of format or have any feedback, please hit subscribe wherever you're listening or watching this, and give us feedback, rate, review. Feel free to put it on there. And betterlearningpodcast.com is our hub for everything. So we have some forums on there. If you'd like to be a guest, you have a movie idea, whatever you want. We get a lot of feedback on there. And Mark, I just love the cool dude sunglasses. What a great way to wrap it up here. And I've been meaning to ask you, it looks like you have a walkie-talkie in the corner there. Is that a walkie-talkie?
I am ham radio certified. So yes.
The Better Learning Podcast is produced by Matt Rogers and edited by Kelly Jones. The views and opinions shared on this podcast are those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily represent the perspectives of their affiliated companies, organizations, or associations.